can get in and hang on. We have a couple more people joining in. Okay. And so let's go ahead and open up in prayer and we'll get started. Lord, we pray that you'll bless our time together today. And I pray that you'll just help me to speak effectively, help the technology to work effectively. And Lord, help us to glean a lot from this. Lord, it's going to be a different season, but Lord, it can be a great one. And these kids have been cooped up for a long time. It'd be great to get them back on the court. And I pray that you'll help us to honor you in every aspect of what we do. And that they'll learn not just the game of basketball, but more about who you are and more about the importance of a relationship with you. In your name, amen. All right, some people still have their system microphones on. If you could all mute your system, that would be good. I may be able to do that from here. There we go. Steve, can you still hear me? And Brian. All right, Steve and Brian are my first two windows, so they're kind of my test cases. All right, and let me make sure the clicker still works. There we go. All right, we've already done the welcome prayer. We are rolling. Every time you see a basketball pop up on the screen like this, it means that we're changing topics. And so you'll know we're progressing through. I just got a signal from my meet. Okay. Okay. One thing before, again, part of the newness, if you have a question, so that we don't have to keep muting and unmuting and the fact that I can't see all of you, use the chat session and send a message directly to Lori. Choose her from the list and send it. And she's sitting right next to me with a screen up, which is what I just did, leaned over to check the screen. And that way she'll signal me when we have questions. And then as we hit a pause, we'll work the questions in. So just type any questions you might have or comments, and then we can get them into the programming without having to stop and restart. One more second here. There we go. Other admit. And with that, we're going to roll. Emmanuel Church's mission is helping people know Jesus and grow to be like him. And we simply build on Emmanuel's mission. We're part of Emmanuel Church. We are part of their overall programming. We're not a separate entity. We are we have separate identification, but we're all part of Emmanuel Church. I'm on staff there, and so we simply change our mission to using sports too, and then help people know Jesus and grow to be like him. And so everything we do is focused on really pointing any of our participants, kids through adults, at Jesus and helping them grow to be like him. Junior coaches this year, for those of you who have them, and most of you will have them, if you have not had junior coaches before, they're amazing. We have some head coaches and assistant coaches in our program that have come up through the junior coaching ranks. What they do is they wear a coach's shirt, they get trained as coaches, but the only way they're going to gain any experience is if our coaches that have them mentor them. So include them in the activities, utilize them, help them learn what it means to be a coach. Allow them to do some teaching, use them to demonstrate. Sometimes they are way more skilled than we are. And, really it is your opportunity to mentor our coaches and leaders of tomorrow. And it is really amazing how many of our junior coaches go on to take bigger and bigger roles. I have members of my leadership team that came up through the junior coaching program. And so it's a great chance for you to mentor those coaches. Brad and Colleen O'Neill, who are on my leadership team, oversee the junior coaching program. So if you would have any issues or questions or, how-tos, please contact them. Lori can get you their contact information. Or if by chance, and it's really an off chance because our junior coaches have been phenomenal, if you'd have an issue, please make sure you talk to them because they're helping train these teens to be our leaders of tomorrow. And with that, we get a basketball. You do, as the coaches, set the team pulse. And the how to doing that is pretty simple. Number one is being positive. Come in with a positive attitude, put the cares aside. This has been a tough year for all of us. And even walking into the gym with a mask on is a reminder that we're still dealing with COVID issues. And it's real easy to let that mindset take over. So be positive when you come in. I believe it or not, smile under that mask. They're going to be able to tell if you're smiling or not. Laughing is a good thing too. Laugh with them and keep the attitude light and positive. Doesn't mean don't be effective as a coach, but it's also kind of intimidating to stare at you in a mask and not really know what your facial expressions are underneath there. Demonstrate self-control. Even though it's a scrimmage-based model, and we'll talk about that, it's easy to get caught up in the game. Make sure you maintain self-control. Be prepared for your practices. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. Treat every child as a winner. They are not all great athletes, and that's okay. This is part of what they do, not part of who they are. And if we remember that and just teach them how to play the game and teach them to enjoy the game, they can get a lifelong enjoyment out of basketball. I don't know if we're going to have any of the kids come out of our program that go on to the NBA, but they will go on to do great things. And then share the love of Jesus. Wrap it all in the love of Jesus. And if you do that, we'll have a great season and you'll set a team pulse that'll be very effective. Learn their names. It's going to be a little hard to do that with the masks on. It's going to be harder to recognize faces. So what I would suggest doing is taking a couple 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and write first name of each kid in big black marker on strips. Cut the sheets into strips. And then at your first practice, just real quick, hand the strips to every player, have them hold them up, snap a picture of your team, and then you have it on your phone, and through the week, help yourself remember what their names are, because it is going to be difficult, especially with the masks, to remember who's who and which kid is which. If you do need to correct a child, get down on one knee to talk to them. This is a real basic, and I teach this every year, but kids are intimidated and they're little. And we as coaches stand over them and correct them, and they're more concerned about our stature than they are about what we're saying. But if you get down on one knee and talk to them eye to eye, it does make a difference. Care for them when they get injured. We have to be a little different in how we do that, again, with the touch factor this year. But sometimes the injuries are a reflection that they're scared more so than really that they're hurt. And apologize if you mess up. It gives you coaches integrity. It really is a way of showing that you mean the things that you teach, not just that you teach things. So if you do make a mistake, if you say something you shouldn't say, or maybe yell at a ref, apologize to your team. It'll go a long way towards establishing your credibility. Building confidence within the kids. Teach them. Don't assume they already know the proper way to do things. Start at the very fundamentals. We don't have a lot of coaching time this year, so we're going to need to move through things quickly. But one of the things that I learned a number of years ago is don't say to a group of people, whether it's in a training class for adults or kids, this is really easy, because then no one will ever ask you a question, because immediately they're admitting they're dumb because you said it's easy. So make sure that you simply just teach them what they need to know and allow them to make their mistakes, because they do learn through trial and error. I love the undo button. I use it all the time, and it's not always because I'm testing things. Sometimes it's because I've screwed it up and something doesn't work. Allow them to have an undo button on the court. If they make a mistake, so what? It's an upward game. This is learning ground. So allow them to go back and try it again. Be on time. This is really going to be a key factor to effective coaching this year. This is so critical, because we have such a small window to work with each week, and we need to get on the court and off the court in a timely manner. And the coaches start that process by being on time. Your practice and game day is combined, and with all the extra COVID procedures that we have to do, we really need you guys to arrive early, which is a minimum of 15 minutes before your time slot. We're probably going to have the doors locked But when we do unlock the doors, the first people in should be the coaches. Greet your team as they arrive. You'll be at your quote unquote locker, and we'll talk about what that is. Greet them as they arrive, guide them to a locker, help them find a place. They're going to come in with one parent who can help them stay at their locker, but they're going to want to socialize, help encourage them to stay where they're supposed to be. It'll help provide the social distancing, ensure they keep their masks on. There are kids that are comfortable in our building because it's their home away from home. And it's real easy for them to pull their masks off, and we got to make sure they keep them on. And then keep them together and out of the gym until it's your practice time. Once they see that the gym's empty, the temptation is to go in and get on their court, but we're probably still going to be sanitizing the gym. And as soon as we have done that, which is why we have the 15-minute break between practices, we'll then call in the teams. So keep them out of the gym until their practice time. And then just help us monitor in general the safety procedures and protocols. Just be watching for things. If they ask you for hand sanitizer, things like that, ask a leader. We'll have it at half court, but just help us keep them safe. Coaching the team, please conduct an organized and planned practice. You're going to have 20 minutes each week of practice time. So you got to make the most of it. Don't treat it as an open gym, and you don't have a whole lot of warm-up time, which will look like an open gym. Engage all your players in the practice activities. Some of them may be a little reluctant, draw them in. Use your coaches, use your junior coaches. That's a good way to utilize them. Make sure your practices are high energy. Keep these kids moving. They've been sitting long enough, just like us in front of screens. That's what they've been doing. So get them running, get them playing, let them have some fun. And you will have your full short court to work with. Since it's scrimmage based and you're only playing against you, you've got a whole court to work with, which includes 2 hoops. So divide and conquer. My practice plan is going to be basically to send one coach to one hoop. I'll stay at the other. We'll keep our junior coach with one of us and divide the group in 2, spend 10 minutes on each of 2 drills, switch in the middle, and that'll be our practice plan. Bring your own whiteboard and marker. We're trying to minimize what we bring in of equipment at the church, because anything that's common equipment has to be wiped down. We want the transition to be on time. We want to keep the day moving. We don't want to get behind. And so we're not going to be providing a whole lot more beyond balls and hoops. So bring your own whiteboard and marker and anything else if you feel you need for coaching. Upward is a developmental league. Don't forget that. So we want to focus heavily on the fundamentals. And those are dribbling and ball control, passing, short range shooting. Long range shooting in small groups can be very dangerous because people often get hit with the ball more often than the backboard gets hit with the ball. Understanding the game, teach them the whys and the whats as you go. It's great to tell them, do this. It's way better to tell them, do this because. Help them understand why you teach them to do something a certain way, and it'll reinforce that there's a purpose to it and why it's good to learn to do it the right way. Your body language and your tone send messages, and this is really important to remember, especially in the gym this year. We're only going to have one parent per child in the gym, so it's going to be somewhat quiet in there, and so you're going to be on point more, and you're going to be able to be heard better. So be sure that the tone that you use in your voice when you're yelling instructions is a tone that reflects what you really want it to reflect. Sometimes we can sound a whole lot more harsh than we mean to, simply because we're projecting our voice. Just be careful of that. And then be careful of your body language. You are coaching kids. Things are not going to go as you would like them to go. That's the way it is. Even in the NBA or WNBA, coaches drop their shoulders because things don't always go as they plan them to. So just be careful that your body language sends the right message and sends a message of encouragement, because frankly, they're not going to be able to see your face. So your body language is even more important this year. And we've hit another basketball. Any questions or anything come through? All right, we'll keep rolling. Your rosters. We've had coaches asking, when do I know who's on my team? We don't send out rosters till after training because we want you guys to know what to do with the information when you get it. And we also want you to be able to answer questions. So once training is done, you'll get an email that'll have your roster attached. It'll come to all the coaches on your staff. Please do not publish personal information about the players, like their phone numbers, or even publishing their last name is a little risky. So, Bill S or Susie M is okay, but I wouldn't put the whole last name if you do publish a list. But I wouldn't publish phone numbers, personal contact information, anything like that. But you'll need that to call your players. So sometime over this weekend, and I know tomorrow's the Super Bowl, so either today or before the game tomorrow, at the latest Monday, please call your parents. It's been a long layoff and some parents are not getting our emails, whether it's a spam filter, whatever it may be. And when you call your parents, you're probably going to have a little more information to give them this year than you normally do. Make sure you introduce yourself, tell them who you are, remind them of their practice night and time and the format, that it's a combined practice and then right into their game, with the exception of the first night. The first night's a full session, but it's just practice. So you do get one long practice in with them before we hit the 20-minute practice format. Remind them of the safety procedures, including that it's only one parent per child, and that masks are mandatory. That's part of the Illinois documentation that we published, and we're going with that. So everyone that enters the building has to have a mask on, including the players and their parents. Tell them to have their children come dressed to play for the first practice. Normally we hand out uniforms and the players run to the restrooms, put the uniforms on, come back, and they're all in uniform week one. And that's a lot of fun. It helps us with returns and exchanges, etc. This year, returns and exchanges are out. We can't send stuff back that kids have put on. So they're kind of stuck with it. And we're not going to have them change at the church. It's just too much of a germ factory to have them running in and out of the bathroom. So we're going to hand out uniforms at the end of the first practice. So have them come dressed to practice that first week. But let parents know that's this season only. We're going back to normal format next year. And then tell them to arrive 10 to 15 minutes before their scheduled time slot, which will allow them to check in, get their temperature taken, and get to the place that they need to be. If they roll in right at the start of practice, they're going to miss what you're covering, again, because you're limited on time. Excuse me. And then tell them to ensure that their child brings full labeled hydration. Another safety protocol is that the water fountains at the church are shut down and no refilling of water bottles on premise. So please make sure they bring their own water bottles and that they have their names on them. And we do have a question. Go ahead.
Can I assume we shouldn't encourage parents bringing snacks this year?
Correct. I hope, could you guys hear Lori read the question? Okay, good. She's sitting right next to me. We were trying to get her close to the microphone so she could read it and I could answer it. Yes, one of the things that the Department of Health encourages is no post-game snacks. Do not bring snacks at all. So unfortunately this year it's hydration, pretty much hydration only. So, and they're only there for an hour, so we should be okay. And moving on. We've covered another basketball, so now we're going to move into really what's going to be the bulk of our presentation. This is going to be the media stuff we do. It isn't the only stuff, but the next 8 or 10 slides are going to really cover what in the world is going to go on this year that's going to look very different. We are going to cover 8 different topics. 1 is the COVID safety procedures. 2 is practice and game days being combined. 3 is our season schedule, which is different. A scrimmage-based model, what does that look like and what do I do? What is the game format going to look like this year? What does our rotation look like? Those of you who are returning upward coaches, you're so used to BRGOP and all of the lingo that goes with our rotations. So that's going to be a little bit different this year. How do we do stars? We did not want to give them up, but we're not using the rooms in the halls. Everything is in the gym. How do we do stars? And then the fact that we will not have a concession stand this year, and what that means. So let's roll into it. COVID safety requirements. Masks are required for everyone who enters the building for that is related to our sporting event. That includes even if we had an electrical issue in the gym and somebody had to come in and check it, they're coming in, they have to wear a mask. It's required for everyone involved in the sports programs. So that's coaches, that's players, and the masks stay on at all times except for when a player or coach is taking a drink. So it's pull down the mask, take your drink, put it right back up. Players will play in masks, fully masked. We did it all summer long out in 90-degree heat in the parking lot, and the kids had a blast. We did it for our summer sports camps. It's a whole lot easier than it looks. Once they get used to it, they may complain a little bit, but frankly, we didn't have kids complaining during the summer. A couple times they got overheated outside, but they never complained that they had to put their mask back on and get back in. Entry, check-in, and temperature taking is part of the COVID safety procedures. That's why they'll be lined up coming into the building. We have some standard questions we have to ask. We have to check them in for contact tracing, and we do have to take their temperature. Contact tracing is so that if we do have an outbreak on a team or someone in the league, we know who they came into contact with. Please help us with social distancing. Obviously, they're going to be close together when they're playing. We can't do anything about that. That's the game of basketball. But outside of when it's necessary, keep them apart. So if you're pulling them into a circle to give them instructions, just have them stand in a broader circle. We do have gym capacity limitations, which is why we're doing the one parent to one child model. The good news is that those have been relaxed a little bit. So we're able to have more staff in the gym to help make things run smoother. We're able to put junior coaches on the teams to help you out and help grow that program and continue to build that. And we're able to have 2 refs on each game when the refs are available. Getting refs this year has been a little tricky as well. No high fives, fist bumps, etc. That's actually in the documentation from the health department. Kids want to high five, you just got to tell them they can't do it. Hand sanitizer will be available in really big bottles at center court. We may have the ones that do it automatically. I'm not sure if we're going to be allowed to use those or not out on the court, but if not, we'll have pumps. But encourage the kids to regularly get hand sanitizer, especially if they're the one on your team that is subbing out. That's a great time to do it. Entry and exit procedures, we're going to go through that on the video that you're going to see in a little bit. Gym seating and equipment will be sanitized after each session, which is why we have a 15-minute break. And so there's a lot of things with that. Any questions that came through on that? Nope, good. All right. Moving on to the practice some game day being combined. We're taking a page out of a model that we did for Upward Soccer a few years back, where it was battling darkness to get practices in during the week. And we said, why don't we just do practice, break for the team huddle, and have them play their game right away. Parents loved it. It's one-stop shopping. They only have to come out once. It was actually a shorter time period they were there, and their weeknights were freed up. So we decided to take that model and use it, only to find out there were park districts were beginning to do the same thing. So we're not alone in this, but this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a 1-hour time slot each week, and it's for your practice and your game. You'll practice again. The first week is the unique one. There won't be a game, so where the game would be is more practice time. But after that, for the following 6 weeks, it's a 7-week season. This is what it'll look like. You'll practice for 20 minutes on the full short court. You'll have access to the whole court. You'll break for your team huddle for 10 minutes. They'll half circle up sitting on the court. You'll teach them right there. Again, keep them socially distanced along with you as coaches, stay socially distanced. And then you'll do a team scrimmage. That scrimmage will be played like a real Upward game. We're going to try to create the game day experience just simply without playing against somebody else's 10-player team. Players will get a whole lot more playing time this year. Most players will either play 3/4 or the entire game. We'll do opening prayer and then go right into the intros from the sideline with the music, and we'll explain how to do that in the video so that the players get announced and recognized. You'll need to have your rotation ready on a clipboard so that the person doing the announcing of the players can just walk along through and read them. If you've participated in Onward Forward Basketball, it's going to look a little bit like that. What Chris Coderman would do would be to move from bench to bench to bench to bench, simply take the clipboard and announce the players right there, because the starters change every week. In your case, they will change every week. They'll be in one color or the other. And so the rotation being handy will help us do the announcements. We'll play 4 6-minute quarters, and no player will sit more than once, which is a great thing. So they're going to play 3/4 of the game. So it's a lot of playing time this year. Instead of 6 6-minute periods, there was no need to do that. We're going to go with 4 6-minute periods, keep them on the court more, keep the game moving. Again, hand sanitizer will be available at center court. Have them hand sanitized before the game starts, and then when they sub out. And then the stars will be presented after the game. We do recommend using the small Ziploc snack bags. You can get a box of those for a couple bucks at Walmart, and it'll last you the whole season. Throw 1 star in each bag, and then have a set of 10 ready to go, and ready to hand out at your game. The season schedule. Any questions so far? No. Oh, all right. It is 7 weeks. It's a little bit shorter than normal, simply so we fit it in. We know spring sports begin in April. We also know we're contending with spring break, but we're not sure a lot of people are going to be traveling yet as the vaccine is still rolling out. So in order to pack it in and still make it long enough to be effective, we're going to roll through the end of March, and then we're done. So week 1, you get a full practice. The reason there's 2 dates on here is we will be doing practice/game slots on Friday nights and then all day Saturday. We have a total of 19 teams, and just under 190 kids. Uniform boxes will be distributed at the end of practice that first night. So just as you get to the end of your practice, you'll come back to a stack of boxes, one with each player's name on it. Simply hand them their box and have them take it directly to their parents as you dismiss them. And then as standard practice, I hate to use the word practice, as standard protocol for every week, when you're done with the players, send them to their parents where they can then, as a group, as a family unit, exit together. Otherwise, you'll get chaos leaving, and we'll have big crowds pouring through the back doors of the gym. So in this case, hand them their uniform box and then send them back to their parents. Beginning week 2, it's practice and game, and we don't have any weeks that we skip all the way through the end of the season, which wraps up on March 26 and 27. If you are going to be traveling, and we know we have some coaches that will be over spring break, but it may be also traveling for business, please let your other coaches know and let our leadership team know. You can shoot an email in to Lori or to Donna Coderman, and either way, and they'll make sure that the rest of the leaders know and that your team has full coverage. Also, if you are a ref, as well, please make sure you let Casey Loffman know. Casey's actually covering the refs this year. Chris Coderman is taking this year off, but we're looking forward to having him back next season. Week 7, we will distribute the Upward Awards. We won't have an award celebration this year, again, because of capacity limitations on group gatherings. So unfortunately, we can't do what we normally do to celebrate the end of the season, but we definitely want the kids to get their awards. So we'll put those awards at your bench for you to hand out the awards, and we'll talk about what to do with those a little bit later in the presentation. Any questions? No? All right, we're rolling. Scrimmage-based model. The rotation will be provided for you, but it's going to look a little bit different. It's going to be a who's in, who's out kind of thing, and it'll change up each week. We are putting players on teams with their friends, and I know if you have kids that are older that have buddies that are good basketball players and they could never play together, you're probably going to hear about it. Like, why didn't this happen when I was playing? My son Nathaniel had a best friend who was one of the top players in our Upward League every year. And every year the two of them asked to play together. And every year we told them, if you want me to keep my job, I can't put you on the same team. And so as soon as he heard that, he's like, wow, he goes, if this had hit when I was a kid, I'd have finally actually been able to play on the same team as my buddy. So they'll be on the teams with their friends. They're going to know each other. It does help with some camaraderie as the season starts. And we want them to be able to play as teammates with their buddies, even if they're the top 2 players on the team. We don't want them always against each other. So we're setting up a rotation that we can hand out to you. And teams vary in number of players from 8 to 12. Some teams will be playing 4-on-4, some will be playing 5-on-5. And so I will be working on those rotations over the next 2 weeks and getting them out to you depending on the number of players that you have on the team. We have the 11-person rotation, I think, is the one we have done, and then we're building off that to do the remainder of them. It's we just want to help mix things up. All you'll do, it's a very similar idea to the Excel spreadsheet we hand out every year, but it is a whole lot simpler. You'll simply put the player names in ranked in order of skill, and the whole sheet populates for the season. You print it, and you have every week's rotation all on one sheet. So it's pretty straightforward. Should be pretty easy to use, and we recommend you use it, and I'll explain why in a second. Your team will change each week. Some kids will be wearing one color, some will be wearing the other, and that'll switch up each week. Oh, we do have a question. Go ahead.
How is skill determined?
You're going to get a chance to watch them that first week at practice. And so you're going to kind of need to talk as a coaching group and estimate how your kids stack. Are you going to get it perfect? Absolutely not. Not after one practice. In fact, kids change throughout the season, and some learn and grow faster than others. So even if you had it perfect week 1, by week 4 or 5, it may not be perfect. So what you're going to do is you're going to rank those players in order of skill at the end of your first practice, that full session. Do your best, and then use that ranking to play your first game. After your first game, meet as a group of coaches and say, do we want to make any changes to the order? Adjust your order to what you feel it is after getting to see them practice a second time and play a game, and then leave it alone. So that's leave it as is the rest of the season after you reset it when game 1 is done. By doing that, it'll help ensure that everybody gets close to equal playing time throughout the season. And you won't have to then worry about, did I sub this person? Have they been in? It'll all be taken care of. And we'll get to the color bands in a little bit, but yes, we are. In fact, I have some here to show you. I'll hold them up real quick. Upward is actually providing shoulder bands this year. They had gone to a wristband model, but they are providing shoulder bands. We'll talk about how shoulder bands are going to work as we get to that later in the presentation. Good questions. Have players reverse the jerseys right before the game. So we really don't know for sure what our colors are going to be, but let's say it's blue and white. Okay, blue team is boom, 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 boom. Go down there with Coach John, and white team is this group. You're over here with me, and then have them switch their jerseys right there on the game on the court, and then put the color bands on them. Equal playing time pending player attendance. One of the reasons that we recommend using the rotation we hand you is that it is based on getting everybody close to equal playing time, if not completely equal, providing they show up. If they miss a game, and you should expect absences this year, especially with people having to quarantine, with people being cautious on illness. Hey, my kid woke up with a little bit of a fever. I'm not sure. I'm keeping them home. So you should expect some absences this year. Don't try to readjust your rotations based on that. Parents are just going to have to understand if their player misses a game, that's missed playing time, and understand. But if you try to go back and rebalance it, you're going to end up with some kids sitting the entire last game of the season to try to balance it, and you don't want to do that. Don't stand in front of the scoring table nor in front of the clock as you coach, because parents want to see both of those. So be careful. There won't be a seating area at on the sidelines. So there won't be a place for players to sit. They'll be standing next to you, but keep everybody from being in front of those two things. The reason that we have them standing, again, less to sanitize, less to clean down, no high fives and fist bumps. Again, just keep reminding them of that. I'm reminding you so that you'll remind them. We're hoping we can get 2 refs per game, but it all depends on ref availability and ref willingness to be in the gym. But we will have 1 ref on every game. They won't be able to see everything like a 2-man crew or a two-person crew would do. So give a little extra grace. They're working in different situations this year too. And then again, we have limited seating capacity. The seats will be spread out with 1 seat per family or 1 seat per parent per player. Games will be live streamed for those who cannot attend. May not be the highest quality video. We're not sure yet how they're going to be doing it. They're still working on the details, but we do want to live stream it so that parents that can't come can at least watch the games. The game format, the color bands will go on before the game. Hand them to the players and let the players put them on. That way it's less contact between you and the players. Show them how to do it. 2 pieces of Velcro hold the cloth ones that we use, and then these new ones from Upward are completely Velcro. So they form a circle, just wrap them around and stick them together. We're still trying to figure out how to do the swapping of game bands with the substitutions. It probably won't be an elegant system this year, and it may just be a matter of 4 of the colors match, and you tell the ref this week yellow is guarding purple for this period. Okay, and we go. So again, it's a scrimmage game between your own team. We want to call it as close to the normal rules as we can, but at the same time, we have to minimize the handling of common equipment. The color bands, the nice thing about it is they won't change for most of the players on your team. Once they're on for the whole game, because whoever's on the court is going to be matched up against that player for the whole game on the other team. We'll do our substitutions at the end of the quarters. If you're playing 4-on-4 and you only have 8 there are no substitutions. But they'll come in, grab a quick drink, and get back to playing. Clock resets and begins immediately, except at halftime. I'll talk about that in a second. So we'll do 6 minutes. As soon as the buzzer goes off, we start the next 6 minutes. So bring them in, have them take a quick drink, give them quick instructions, and get them back on the court. At most, you're subbing 1 player, and everybody else is going back out, so it should be pretty straightforward. We'll do a 1-minute halftime. We'll pause the clock. We'll pause for a minute, set the clock, and then get right back at it. The reason we're so tight on the schedule is, again, we're trying to keep this all within the 1-hour window. So 4 quarters at 6 minutes per quarter is 24 minutes plus a 1-minute half. That gives us 5 minutes for doing prayer, team intros, and stars at the end of the game. After the game, have the players remove their own color bands and drop them in the bin. That way you're not handling their sweaty equipment. And good news is the church has installed a washer and dryer, so we're able to launder these things throughout the day as we need them. But I think with what we've ordered, we now have enough to cover the whole day. But just let the players drop them all in the bin, and then we'll make sure they get laundered. And we'll talk about what this exactly means. One of my leaders presented this as what they did on their soccer game. Instead of lining up and passing everybody, we're going to form lines, swing out those lines, and just have everybody wave at the other team, congratulate their teammates on a good game, and then go back to the coach that coached them for the game to do their stars. The rotation, it does provide a variety of matchups and teammates, which we really wanted to do to make sure everybody gets to play with and against everybody else. It does guarantee as close to equal playing time as we can get. It simplifies your job, but it also provides documentation and justification for who gets substituted when. Some players may not get substituted a whole lot at the start of the season, but then they substitute each week through the rest of the season. And the reversal may be true. And so you may get a parent that says, Billy over there hasn't subbed out at all yet, and yet my son has been out all 3 games. You can simply flip the page over and say that changes. Later on in the season, it's reversed. And so if you use the rotation we hand you, it'll help you be able to just show parents, hey, your kid's going to get the same treatment as everybody else on the team. Our post-game stars presentation. Any questions? Okay, good. We're rolling. Post-game stars presentation. Each team will present their own stars. And I say team. You're going to have 2 groups of 5. So instead of bringing them all back to as a group of 10 or a group of 8 or 11, whatever your team may have, the person who coached each team in your scrimmage game will present their stars. It'll help them go quicker. And so they'll only need to worry about the 5 or 6 stars for the players that played for them. And while they're presenting their stars, the other coach will be presenting their stars, and it'll help us move the kids through the process. It needs to be a 1 or 2 sentence highlight. In the past, I've said, go on and on. Parents love to hear their kids get praised. Well, unfortunately, the parents won't even be able to come out onto the court for the stars presentation. So this is between you, the coach, and your players. And so you want that 1 to 2 sentence highlight to be effective, but it does need to be short. So you'll need to say something along the lines of Susie, you are getting the red star for defense for that great play you made, cutting off an easy layup on a fast break. You hustled back, stopped the fast break. Way to go, red star. Done. It's very simple, but something that you saw that was a highlight of what they did. I love the stars, and I love to embellish, and I love to not embellish falsely, but I love to go into how it, something we learned at practice and they brought it to the game. I love to do those things. We can't do that this year. So make it effective, but make it quick. We do have a question on that, so go ahead.
So a couple questions came in. One, can we go within 6 feet of the parent so that they can hear or might be able to hear? That was one question. And then, or 2, are you wanting us to speak loudly for parents to hear, or only just the kids for stars? So,
both those are really good questions. The issue with trying to get into proximity with the parents is that the parents may not sit in the same order or on the same ends as the players are. So now you have blue, white, blue, white, mixed up down the line, and you're trying to get them to hear what you're saying, and you're coaching the blue team, and I think it'll be somewhat chaotic. If we find a simple solution to it, maybe during the season we can change it. But to start with, it's really just between you and the players. So they're going to come back to you at half court. You do not need to speak loud enough for the parents to hear. You really want to speak loud enough for the players to hear. Hand them their stars, and tell them, hey, tell your parents what we saw, and then send them back to their parents. Again, it's not ideal. I love the stars. It's one of my favorite parts of game day. But we've got to keep it simple, and we've got to keep, what we don't want to do is maintain social distance all the way right to the end of the game and then pack everybody together and undo what we did. Is that all of it? Okay, good. And if I don't answer your question or you still have a sub question, you can send back another one too. Don't feel like if I've answered it, if I wasn't clear or I didn't tell you what you needed to know, please feel free to keep asking. Social distance, when you present the stars in a half circle, just have them arc in front of you. And if it's 2 coaches, some teams have up to 4 coaches, or 3 adults and a junior coach. So it'll be 2 coaches. Just make sure everybody is doing the social distancing thing. Track which stars each player has earned. Head coaches, this is your responsibility. So make sure that whomever you have coaching the other team tells you what stars they gave out, so that you make sure that every player gets at least 1 of each star over the course of the 6 weeks. You have 5 colors of stars and 6 weeks to work with. So definitely make sure you're tracking who got what. Don't forget to hand out the green stars. We're going to get into what those are. Those are the memory verse stars, but what we do with them. But we're recommending you hand those out along with their star for the game, so that they get everything at once and they take it all to mom and dad right there at the end. No concession stand this year. Just simply the food handling restrictions with COVID safety. we didn't want to get into that. The last thing we want to be is the cause of something. And so the things that aren't necessary but are nice to have, we've kind of trimmed back for this year. Next year, we plan to have the concession stand back up and running, but we just again, deciding to err on the side of caution this year. Water fountains, again, are closed. I just keep reminding you of that because inevitably you're going to have a kid that comes and goes, yeah, I didn't bring a water bottle. Make sure we remind the parents that players have to bring their own water bottles and that they should label them. The green Gatorade bottles all look alike, and Gatorade's been making them for years. So make sure they put their names on them so that they don't get mixed up. They can't share water bottles either, even if it's their friend. Their best friend, sorry, you can't share water bottles. Leaders will have an emergency supply of water bottles. I'm telling you that, but please don't tell your kids that, or we'll have kids every week going, I didn't bring water, can I get water? And we'll be out before we get halfway through the day. But we will have water on hand. We certainly don't want anybody suffering from dehydration. But we want to encourage people to bring their own supplies. And then unfortunately this year, even if they're the expensive ones, water bottles left behind will be thrown out. We can't put things into lost and found that people have been drinking out of. So if the gym clears out and as we're sanitizing, we find a water bottle, it's going in the garbage. So make sure that you kind of police that before you leave. Have a look. If you see a family get up and leave something behind from the chair that they're sitting in on the sideline, please tell them. And with that, we hit another basketball. How are we doing on our time frame? Oh, you have that. Are we on schedule? Okay. The team huddle. You'll hear coaches refer to the team huddle by a whole bunch of different names: devotional time, Bible study time, halftime huddle. It all depends on when you started coaching and where you started coaching, what the name was given to it. And so really it's our short Bible study time, and that needs to be led by the head coach on the team. The selection process for head coaches is really all about the fact that Upward is the ministry at Emmanuel Church, and we do a Bible study as part of this ministry, and so the head coach has to be aligned with the church doctrinally and should be the one doing the devotional. So the team huddle will be taught by the head coach. That's part of your responsibility. What's it going to look like this year? Well, at the 20-minute mark, you're going to bring the kids in. They're going to sit down on the floor. We'll either have them sit in a half circle, probably a half circle at half court on your short court, with you facing towards the parents. We certainly welcome the parents being able to hear what's being taught to their kids. It's a great chance to share what we believe about Jesus with the whole crowd. And we will ask parents, I'll take care of that announcement before we start. Just asking parents to stay off their phones and keep the gym quiet so that the kids can hear and aren't distracted. The devotions will reflect virtues that Christ modeled. Players will need to sit 6 feet apart during the devotional time. And coach, you don't have to stand to do it. You can sit down on the floor with them. This is kind of the model we use when we do volleyball in the gym, and it works real well. Upward leaders are selecting the devotionals that we'll use, and they'll let you know which ones we're going to do. Since we only get to do a subset, they're going to go through and pick the best ones, the ones they think really will resonate with the kids. So they'll be sending out the list to you in the coach communications that they send sometime in the next week. And the first devotional that you do is a get acquainted anyway. It's not a teaching thing. It's really what's Upward about and letting the players introduce themselves. So that's really 1 down, 6 to go. The green memory verse starts. We do a memory verse each week or each set of weeks. And again, the leadership team will be letting you know how we're going to break that out. But when you share the verse with the kids for grades K through 2, we're going to do the green stars a little bit different than we do for grades 3 to 6. Normally, we award the stars for memorizing the verse. The problem is, again, we have limited time with the kids. So what we're going to do is the kindergarten through second grade group, they're going to get their green stars the day of, because they're going to do their team huddle and then go into the game. If they sit in the half circle and they try to say the verse with you and they work on it with you as a group, they get a green star. It's a reward for participating. We want them to start learning to hide God's word in their heart, and simply saying it with you is great. For grades 3 to 6, you're going to challenge them a little bit more. During that 15 minutes that you get there before practice, have them say their verses to you before your practice starts. And if they can say the verse before you head into the gym, then at the end of the game, when you hand them their game star, you'll also give them their green stars. You'll check those off on your probably on your rotation sheet, the ones that say their verses. Actually, my leaders will be floating around as well and are willing to jump in and listen to verses in the lobby as well. So if you get all 10 kids on your team going, coach, I know it, just wave over one of my leaders and they'll help you do that. We love to hear the kids recite their verses, and then present the stars after the game. Like I said, when you present their game day stars, your last practice devotional will be a gospel presentation. It really emphasizes the importance of a relationship with Jesus. And so that one of all of them is the most important. It's really what we build to in everything that we teach them all season long. Jesus demonstrated these virtues because we should demonstrate these virtues, and the way to do that is to have a relationship with him. And so that last practice devotional is your most important. Expectations for the team huddle participation, yes, preparation. Please, coaches, be prepared for the team huddle. Don't just come in, try to find it, look at the list and go, oh, they want us to do the week 7 devotional, flip to it and read it to them. Kids know if you haven't prepared and they check out, it's just not effective. So know the material well enough to use the book as a reference, not as a script. Make the material engaging. Some of us are not teachers. Many of us may not be teachers, but you can still make it engaging, and just talk to the kids, tell them the information. You only get 5 to 8 minutes, and we have to stay on time. So there's not a whole lot you don't have a lot of time. So make the most of it. Work on the verse as a team each week. Hand out the verse cards when you do a verse the first time. Again, if you're doing a verse for the first time, have those verse cards with your game stars and hand them out as part of what you hand out at the end of the game. Again, say the verse as a team. That helps the kids learn it together, and also enables the parents to hear what the verse is that you're teaching. One of the things I challenge my coaches is lead by example and learn the verse. I can't tell you how many of the verses over the years that we've learned in Upward, Onward, and Forward have come back to be so meaningful in our family. And we're like, wow, we had that verse as a devotional. And it really, it is amazing just how impactful these verses are, not just on the kids that you're teaching, but how they'll be for you as a leader. The team huddle, if our mission for Upward coaches is promoting the discovery of Jesus through sports, and that's what Upward's mission is, then let's make the team huddle something the kids really get excited about being at. Not, oh, great, we got to sit down and listen again, but it's a time when they really enjoy. They get to hear something, hear a really interesting story, and how it relates to them. Did we get a question? Okay, we have a couple of questions that just came in.
So the verse that the kids say to us before practice is the verse we worked on the previous week?
Correct. You'll give them the verse card. You likely will have the same verse 2 weeks in a row. So if they said it week 1, they can say it again week 2, and they can get another green star for every week that they say it. And then some weeks we may use a verse only once and then switch out.
And then looking for a link to the Coaches app.
The Coaches app, we'll talk about that in a little bit. You'll get a, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's a great question, but we'll get there. We're coming up on resources for you as a coach. So good question. Please mark that down so I'm sure we talk about the Coach app. All right. The awards.
The coach is a box.
Yeah, you will get a box. Your coach's book for the season will be in there. But until you get that box on night one, you'll have access to the Upward website, which has a PDF of the coach's book and all sorts of materials. Again, like I said, we'll get to that in a little bit. The awards celebration, again, we're not going to have the big get together party, celebrate the end of the season. So what we're going to do is during your final game, we're going to bring the awards out to your benches. Or your bench area, so that you can hand the awards to the kids. So they're going to go home with stars. They're going to go home with awards that day. They'll walk out with some stuff to carry home. And I don't even know what the awards are going to be this year. I think I do. I made a choice on what I thought we would want, but again, everything was back in October. So if they've changed over inventory, so it's going to be a surprise to me, as it will be to you guys when we hand them out. They'll be, like I said, they'll be brought to your bench. Congratulate each player on their accomplishments as you hand them the award. Tell them this is to celebrate a great season. Congratulations. Hand them the award. Again, don't shake their hands because we're not allowed to this year, and that's how we're going to handle awards. We're going to go through a few rules that make Upward basketball different. Most of you are returning coaches. I think about 80% of our coaches this year or higher have coached in Upward before. So I'm going to cover this really quickly, a very high level, but this presentation will be available to all of you. And if you have questions on anything deeper, you can go back to Casey Loftman and then he can walk you through the details on the Upward rules. Normally our reffing commissioner handles this part of the training, but again, it's different this year. We do have a continuously running clock. That clock keeps resetting. It's always going and it keeps us on time. So you can always check the clock and know how much time you have left in whatever part of practice you're in. That includes your team huddle. That includes the 1 minute for halftime. It'll continuously be running and continuously keeping us on time throughout the day. The defensive zones. This will be easier to see once you get on the court. First and second and third and fourth use the black and blue line as the defensive zone. It's a line about 2/3 up towards half court. And they cannot play defense into the backcourt beyond that until the ball has crossed that line. Coaches, it's really important to teach your kids this rule night one. Once the ball crosses that line, they can play defense all the way to the half court until the ball goes out of bounds or a change of possession, etc. Then it resets until again the ball crosses it. We see players that no matter how many times the ball goes back and forth across that line, they stop at that line playing defense. So make sure they understand that. It does get reset when the ball is inbounded, but again, as soon as the ball crosses it, the whole half court is opened up to play defense. The 5th and 6th graders, they use the half court line as their defensive zone. So teams can't play defense until the ball crosses the half court line. 5th and 6th does have a safety zone. They can go back across the half court with the ball, but the defense does have to stop at the half court, but they cannot cross that black and blue defensive line on the other side of the half court line, or that becomes an overback violation. We do play man-to-man required defense, hence the color bands. We'll do our best to call that. But again, we'll talk about the prioritization of what we make in calls as referees. But defense, man-to-man, we're still going to stay with that. We thought about opening it up to teach whatever you want, but it's so hard to go back once we've changed it. So we're going to keep that rule, and it will be man-to-man defense. Guard your color, as we've done in the past. Help defense. There's 3 occasions where a player can come off the color they're supposed to be guarding and help another. One is on picks and screens. We have a video to show what that looks like. The next one is on fast breaks. On a fast break, and make sure kids understand what hey, you got a whole court to teach it with on first night. This is going to be really different. What a fast break is. Some of them don't even understand what that term means. But on a fast break from one end to the other, any color can guard any other color. So if the red player is heading down court with the ball and you're wearing purple, go get the ball. In any instance, you can guard on a fast break any player, but once the offense sets up their offense in the half court, then you move back to man. But as long as the break is going on, you can guard any color. And then within the defensive zone, first and second and third and fourth, if the ball is in the lane, they can come off their player within arm's length reach and guard the ball. For fifth and sixth grade, we open that rule, guarding within arm's length reach, to anywhere within the 3-point arc. I know that's a lot to take in. It'll flow a little better as the season goes along if you're new to it. And if you're a returning coach, it's like, yeah, I always forget that anyway. So that's how it works. Here's what the help defense looks like on a pick or a screen. Providing the video, here it goes. Player in the blue jersey moves over, sets the screen. His player that was guarding the player that set the screen picked up the ball handler. And once the play stopped, they switched back. And then the other help defense is in the lane area. You're going to see the player pull off of his player and guard the player making the drive. The trouble is that when this video starts, the player who pulled off to guard against the drive down the lane left his man wide open for a layup, and that's what happened. So here's the play. Player handling the ball is coming down the lane. Player steps in to provide help defense, but left his player open. So you can get burned on that, but we do want them to play good basketball, and we do want them to understand helping their teammates out. So that's what it looks like in the lane area. Backcourt violations, we don't call them for first and second and third and fourth. If they make a mistake in the backcourt, kick the ball out of bounds, drop it, etc., we give it back, let them go on. You will get refs sometimes that do a lot of games and either forget which age group they're doing or forget this. If they do call a turnover, don't beat up the ref. Remember, it's a scrimmage game. It's your team versus your team. We don't call over and back for first and second and third and fourth. We may blow the whistle and tell them that's an over and back, give them the ball back at half court and say, you're not supposed to do that, and go on. But we don't call it in terms of a turnover. And then the opposite side defensive line is used for over and back in fifth and sixth. Like I said, they have that safety zone, but if they go across that line in the backcourt, then it is an over and back. Players can still foul out this year. If a player gets 2 fouls in a period, they have to come out. And so if you have a sub on the sideline, that player goes in. I'm not sure if we're going to have them. I don't think we're going to have them play shorthanded. So if a player gets 2 fouls in a period, but you only have 10 and you're playing 5-on-5, then they just stay in the game and we go on. Normally there would be a sub out system, but I don't think we want them playing 5-on-4, especially if you have color bands. Who does that player guard? So it is, like I said, going to look a little bit different. We're going to have to navigate it as we go. If a player fouls out in a period, the next time they are supposed to go back into the game, they go back into the game. They're not fouling out for the game. And if you have a player that fouls out, boy, if this happens, you got to talk to your players about fouls. But if you have a player that fouls out and comes out and you send your sub in for them and another player fouls out, do the same thing and send that first player back into the game. But that's an awful lot of fouls by an awful lot of players in one period. But at least if you have the option, enforce the penalty so they do understand there is a cost for committing 2 fouls in the game or in a period. 2 fouls in a game, no big deal. Let's see, scores kept for 3rd through 6th grade divisions. We don't keep score for 1st and 2nd grade because it's all about them learning. And so don't keep it on the sidelines as well. We do count 3-pointers at all divisions. We've had 1st and 2nd graders hit 3-pointers. It's pretty cool. And free throws are shot on shooting fouls. There's no bonus. But if it is a shooting foul, we do take the shots. If a shooting foul occurs and there's less than 30 seconds left in the period, we will send everybody to the bench. It'll look like a technical, but that's so they can quickly go in, get some instructions, grab a drink of water, whatever it may be. And then only the shooter stays on the court, takes their shots. It enables us to keep the game moving. It takes a while to line kids up for a free throw. There's no sense wasting the time with less than 30 seconds left in the period. Shoot the free throws, we'll send them to the sidelines, and when the period ends, we'll reset the clock. During the last 2 minutes of the game, all fouls are points. And this slide is there's a lot of detail in this slide, and I'm not going to go through it in the detail. We'll make sure we get this out to you. But basically, the type of foul and who makes the foul determines the points that are awarded and also determines who gets the ball. This does get a little bit confusing, so we'll send this out in the coach's email, read through it, make sure you understand it, because this is often a place where we end up losing game time in the last couple minutes of the game because the refs are trying to make the call and award the points, and the coaches are going, wait, no, why are you giving points? And it gets confusing. So make sure you understand this. And then if you have any questions, we'll gladly walk you through it. No score is given for a shot made into the wrong goal. And I guarantee this will happen sometime throughout the season. We've had it happen at all the different levels. Unfortunately, when you hit onward and forward, it counts. But it's embarrassing enough for a kid to shoot it in the wrong basket. Inevitably, it'll be a kid's first basket of the year as well. It always happens that way. But we just treat it as a turnover, give the ball to the other team, no points go on the board. 3-second violation is not called for grades 1 to 2. It's just trying to get them to play good basketball and understand the fundamentals, and having them try to count to 3 seconds while learning all that is more than they're going to be able to process. But at the same time, you want to encourage them, if you're coaching in that division, to move around, get in and out of the lane, help them understand what good movement on offense looks like, as opposed to just one big cluster of 10 kids under the basket. Help them at least understand it, even if we're not going to call it. During games, I have a big X through this one. Unfortunately, again, with social distancing, first and second grade coaches will not be able to be on the court during the game with their players. We're going to try to keep our distance a little bit more. So it's a quieter gym. You'll be able to clear on instructions from the sideline, but you won't be able to be out there with your players, at least not initially. We'll see how it goes. If we really find we need it, we may loosen this up, but as of right now, we won't be doing that. Goal heights, when you go to start your practice, make sure that your hoop height is set according to the age group that you're coaching. It's 8 feet for the kindergarten. This says first and second, but we do have some kindergartners. It's kindergarten first and second is 8 foot, third and fourth is 9, and fifth and sixth is 10. If you do need to adjust the hoop, please don't adjust it with the tethers at full tightness, because that's how we strip out the tightening mechanism. So if you do need to adjust a hoop height and you're not sure what to do, grab a leader. But if you do know what to do, make sure you loosen the tether, change the hoop height, and then retighten the tether. The tether helps keep the backboards straight up. Because they're adjustable, the backboards lean forward a little bit. So we've put the tethers in so that you get a straighter shot. Ball possession, periods 2 and 4, the ball will go back to the team that had the ball at the end of the previous period. So no desperation half-court shots are needed in those 2 periods. But at the end of the halves, if you're standing on the end line for any reason, duck. If you know someone that wants to ref, or you'd like to ref yourself, contact Casey Loftman. He's still looking for refs. We really could use the help. If you are or know a teen, and that's up through the high school age, that would like to get into reffing, we will train, and refs get paid, not paid, but paid. It's youth fundraising, and we do this every year It's funded by the concession stands, and we will continue to do it for reffing this year. The concession stands, if you work in concessions as a teen, or if you ref a game, you get $250 per hour or per ref slot that goes into your youth fundraising account. That's for missions trips, that's for retreats, that's also to play sports at the church. It's an account that can be used anywhere at Emmanuel Church for activities within those arenas. So it's a way for, if you have a kid that wants to go on a spring retreat or a fall retreat, but they need to earn money for it, this is a great place to plug in and start building up some of that funding too. So it's a great way for them to plug in and reap some extra rewards along with serving their community. Supporting our referees. Coaches, please do support them. They're running up and down the court with a mask on. Masks can get in the way, masks can move, and there's only one ref right now. If we can get 2 per game, we will. We'll get 2 for whatever games we can. But one ref just can't see everything. So allow them to call the game the best they can. And remember, it's a scrimmage game. We want it called effectively, but they're only one person. And here's their priority for what they're going to call. First and foremost, their calls are going to be geared towards player safety. They're looking for the hard fouls, unsafe play, the things that could result in an injury. Secondly, they're looking for fouls, straight out contact fouls and violations. So those are their number 1 and number 2 priorities that they're looking for. Third is then the core fundamental rules, double dribbling, traveling. Again, all about the basketball and player safety. Then we get to the core upward rules. This is where some of the things that are unique to upward. They may miss an illegal defense call because the angle they were at, they couldn't tell that a kid crossed the defensive line before the ball penetrated. It's all going to be about their positioning and what they're able to see. And then lastly, and not that it's not important, but it's the lowest priority on their calling list, and that is the color bands. They'll call illegal matchups and illegal defense when they see it, but one ref focusing on calling the entire game, their priority is going to be on those first 3, and then to a lesser degree 4 and 5. The color bands are really about an honor system. They're an honor system designed to help kids learn to play man-to-man defense and to ensure that we match players up in a way that allows every player to succeed during the game. So as a coach, when you're on the sidelines, you can help us ref the color bands by reminding your players when they're defending illegally. Don't be telling the player on the other team that they're defending illegally, but if your player's on defense and they're wearing blue and they're sliding over and constantly defending the red player, make sure you tell them, hey, you're not staying on your player, that's illegal defense. Let them know that, and you can even tell them that on the court. Don't tell players on the opposite team, even if you're the head coach. Tell your other coach, let them tell the player. We don't want to embarrass kids on the court, but we do want them to help. We want to help them understand the rules and follow them. We also want to teach players good sportsmanship. And one of the things that we try to establish in our gym is that after the game, and we want you to encourage your players to take this with them from our gym and take it anywhere they go and play. Normally, we have them shake the ref's hands or do a fist bump. Unfortunately, they can't do that, but they can walk over and thank the ref when the game is over. And that means a lot to the referees who are giving up their Saturdays and volunteering and doing it because they love these kids, love Jesus, and want to teach sports. But it also reminds the kids that the refs are there. They're not the enemy. They're there to help ensure that the game is safe and well played. And so encourage your kids to thank the refs when the game is over. We're going to do a quick walkthrough what practices and games look like. How are we doing on time? We're a little bit behind. Okay, so we'll keep rolling. We shot a video to allow you to kind of see the progress through the building. It's about a 15-minute video, but it goes through maybe in a little more detail and definitely a lot more visually what to expect on game day. So we're praying this works. I'm going to click play, and you may need to bump the volume up just a little bit because we were filming outside to go in and then in wide open areas in the gym. And we noticed that the volume was a little bit lower than even with me talking close to the camera than we'd like. But if you bump your volume, you should be able to hear it. Steve, I'm going to look at you, and Brian, if I need to adjust anything or pause it on my end to make an adjustment, let me know. Coaches, we wanted to do a quick walkthrough of what the logistics are for the people movement on practice/game days for this year. It's definitely going to be different, but we're going to have signage and people in place to help people get where they need to be, including you. The more you know about that, the more you can help us. Everyone will enter through the main doors right here. They will exit through the back doors, which we'll head out a little bit later. This is simply an entry point, no exit. We'll have a sign here. Enough, we'll try to move them quickly so that although they're maintaining 6 feet distance, it's inside rather than out. But follow me, we'll head on in. In this area of the lobby, we'll have a couple of these tables set up, and we will be checking people in with the standard COVID questions, including have you exhibited any symptoms, have you been running a fever, etc. And we'll also have those questions posted so that people know what they're going to be asked when they come in. We will also be checking people in by name for contact tracing, just in case there would be any issues. Also, within this area, we will be taking temperatures. And anyone running a fever will be asked to step aside. We'll have an area designated where they can step over. We'll give them a couple minutes just in case for some reason they have their hood on or maybe heat up in the car. They've warmed up, we'll take their temperature again. But if they are running a fever, they won't be allowed in the building. This will be true for spectators as well as for the players and for you as coaches. We also ask that you arrive 15 minutes early so that you're the first ones in for your team, because where we're going to head to next is where you'll help us get them staged so that we can keep the day moving. I'm in the building. I'm going to put my mask on. And from this point forward, to the phone before I hit the door, it'll be on. Now, once players come in, we're going to have 2 lines moving to the sides here so that we can keep them moving through quickly. You can see we can probably fit 2 or 3 groups of people in 2 lines here so we get them out of the goal. Both lines do the same thing, end up at the same place. This one will go out, and then circle back around to that lobby area. This one will simply go directly to the lobby area. Follow me, we're on to our next stop. Once players arrive inside, I'm actually going to take my mask off since we're going to the building. I can see once players arrive into this area of the building, we will have the mini flat cones spread out in 6-foot increments to allow for social distancing all around this room. The team from Court 2 will stage here because they will be the first to go into the gym. We'll have their cones here. Players will stand with a parent and will stay by their cone. Please ask them not to be stamping up and down on the cones, that it does ruin them. But the cones are here to keep them in what we're calling their locker area and keep everyone separate until we can get them seated in the gym. Team for Court 1, we on this side of the room. Again, stays 6 feet apart by the cones. Once we get to the top of the hour, after the gym has been sanitized, cleaned down, and the equipment has been swapped out, we will call Court 2 in first. Head coach, we would like you to lead the way. We'll help keep them pace as they go. And then once the team and their families are on Court 2, then we'll bring in Court 1. Coach, the coach actually off limits. Everything that a player or family brings into the gym stays with the parents at their chair and then back onto the kids and out the door. So there's no changing area. The restrooms will be open, but we will have limitations on how many people can go in and out. We're still determining what that's going to look like. Water fountains are shut down. No public use of water fountains. Players must bring their own hydration. Please continue to reinforce that to players as they can't water fountains. Heading into the gym. The floors have just been redone, and so you're going to be the first group to get to play on the shiny refinished floor. Always a nice thing you get to speak of positions. For those of you who are new to the league, we have two short courts going across. You can see the lines for court one, court two is towards the stage. There is a hoop at each end of this court. End of each, or at each end of the other court as well. They are in the storage area at the moment. They get pulled out each week. They are weighted at the back. They are raised and lowered for each practice / game slot according to the age group of the children that are practicing. Your parents will be sitting, if you're in court one, your parents will be sitting along this end, 6 feet apart. We'll have some chairs pre-staged in order to keep the social distancing. And again, all of the players' equipment, except for their water bottles, will be with the parent. We're still debating on whether or not we want to leave the water bottle with the parents as well. The kid just runs there to get a drink. I think maybe the most simple solution, but we're still talking that one through. And don't panic. This is not the ultimate slalom dribble drill among chairs. This is set up for Sunday morning, but this will all be cleared before we start practices on Friday night. Now, the red lights here indicate the end of the first upward court. The red lines there start the second court. In the middle here is where the scoring tables, our main clock, and where you as coaches will stand with the players that are not in the game. Remember, it's only your team practicing and playing on a court. And so if you do have a substitute, they'll be standing in this area 6 feet away from whichever coach is coaching them on that particular day. You'll need to stay 6 feet away from the scoring table. You'll have this range of pace. But again, all about social distancing. Our main clock will be over there. We will have a singular running clock that controls our day. And then we'll have corner clocks on this side of the gym, and to be able to see the clock at the time from both sides of the court. Scorekeeping will be done right here. We ask you not to stand in front of the scores. All the parents will be able to see the clock from there, or the score from there. Set up on the far side of the gym. Again, the parents will only be able to sit along the stage, nothing along the sidewalls. And again, coaches, if you're on court 2, you'll be standing in this area again, 6 feet distance from the other coaches, and coaching your team over here. Remember, it's all your team, so you both win and lose every week, unless you tie, and then you got 2 ties in one game. It is all about cheering on your kids and teaching them the fundamental basketball skills, and really allowing them to have some fun this year in a very different way. Because this year we didn't have to balance the teams, we place players with their friends, so they're gonna have a lot of fun, even if it's just scrimmaging. We're gonna create the game day experience. Now, creating the game day experience is gonna require your help a little bit. What we're gonna have to do is, once your team is ready to go for the game, you're gonna have 5 players or maybe 6 on each side. And what we're gonna ask you to do is line them up along the red line, 6 feet apart, and then we'll play the Bulls music. We'll have them announce, and they'll step forward onto the court, basically 2 steps in as we announce their names. So we'll go right down the list, and then we'll switch to your other team and go right down the list and announce the player names. No tunnel this year. Again, contact and hands-on things are minimized as much as we possibly can. And so that's how we're going to do player intros for the game at the end of the game. What we're going to ask you to do is line your players up similar to what you did for intros, and then swing them out and turn them so that they're facing the players they just played. Everybody waves, says good game, and then they swing back here for their stars presentation. We'll talk more about the stars presentation further on in the training, but it will go fairly quickly. It's a 1 to 2 sentence. Here's what you did today. Unfortunately, because of the time limits, we've got to move them quickly, but we did not want to eliminate stars. So you'll have to boil it down to something very specific and very quick. Don't forget, as you present the star, let them know what it's for. The blue star for best effort, and it was because of this, and hand them their star. We recommend putting those stars in Ziploc bags as well, again, to just help avoid contact, things dropped on the floor, things left behind, etc. One other thing to make note is please look at your bench before your players exit. Make sure that their water bottles are all picked up. Part of the reason we're thinking maybe leave them with the parents, because this year we will not put water bottles in lost and found. We will throw away any water bottles that are left behind each week, even if they're good ones. And I hate to do that, so please make sure that we help kids not forget things. After stars are presented, we will dismiss court 2 first. They will head out those double doors right back there, head down the hall, hang left and head out, which we will do in just a second, and then we will dismiss court 1. Again, help your team stay 6 feet apart in groups as they exit the building. Once they're out, the sanitization process will begin in the gym and for the equipment. That's why we have a 15-minute gap between practice and game slots, and we will be ready to go for the next game. If you follow me, we'll walk out. I'll show you where you're going to head out, and with that, walkthrough should be done. I'd ask if you have any questions, but you can raise your hand right now. So follow me. By the way, referees are going to be asked to work. If you only have 1 referee on a game, which most games will only have 1 ref, we'll be working the side that is closest to you, the coaches. So rather than expose them to 10 sets of parents going back and forth here, we're going to try to keep them on the side where it's only a couple of coaches. So you'll be closer to the refs, but don't let that allow you to take extra advantage of that opportunity. Work with our refs, help them out, encourage them. They're putting themselves out too, wearing masks and running up and down the court just like everybody else. These are the exit doors out to the hall. Restrooms on this end of the gym will be open, so players on court 2, if they need to make a quick restroom break, do not have to pass through where everybody is on court 1. They can come to these restrooms. Again, we'll have leaders monitoring the limits of people in the restroom. But again, these water fountains are closed. Look, there's an out of order sign on that. That is a health department restriction right now. No refilling of water bottles or hydration. And unfortunately, our concession stand will remain closed this year as well. Again, trying to minimize any passing of germs by way of food. We will have a stanchion up, a stanchion across here, which will guide people out through here. There'll be a sign that says exit only. People will come this way, exit out through these 2 glass back doors, and then head out to the parking lot to their cars. If you are coaching in back-to-back slots, or if you have a family on your team who has players in back-to-back slots, they are required to go through the exit and re-entry process. It's all about tracking. It's all about contact tracing. It's all about monitoring the processes that we go through, and we've got to get the gym clear so we can sanitize it down. The easiest thing to do is to not try to vary from the process. So if parents ask you, yes, they do have to walk out, even if it's cold, snowy, go back down, check back in for their next game. Thank you, and we'll move on with training. Sorry if your video was a little bit choppy on that. We filmed that in high-res video, and it plays real smooth on our end. But we got some feedback that it was a little bit choppy. If you couldn't get it or you couldn't really tell what was said, it'll be part of what we post as the presentation. There are resources. We got to ask earlier about the coaching resources. There is the Upward Coaching app is available out in the App Store. You can download it to your phone or to your mobile device. myupward.org is where you will find a wealth of coach information, and you will get an email that gives you authorization to get in there as a coach. Please do not ignore that email. We will send those out. I think when you get it, you have 24 or 48 hours to click a link in there to say, hey, yes, I am an Upward coach. Otherwise, we have to resend it. So make sure that you utilize that. And then, of course, your coach's playbook, which will be a spiral bound book in your box. Please put your name in it because they all do look alike. The Coach's Sideline is a great resource out on the Upward website for coaches. It actually breaks down practices to what you can cover each week. We don't require you. We let coaches formulate their own practice plans according to their team and their own personal preferences and what they want to teach in what order. But if you're new and you really aren't sure what to teach, you can use the Sideline. But not this year. Oh, and Lori pointed out, yes, this breaks down a full-size practice, so you'd have to pick and choose what you're going to teach on this. Yes, this would cover a normal length practice. Player rotation, we've covered a lot of things with the player rotation, so I'm not going to get into depth with this other than to remind you, rank your players before game one, re-rank them after game one, lock them down, and no discretionary shifting of players or playing time. Billy missed last week, so I'm not going to sub him out this week. Don't do that. Follow the rotation. Colored shoulder bands, please make sure you get them on top of the shoulder so that the refs can see them from the front and the back. Makes it much easier to make the calls. Some people like to put them on like a corsage on the front, but it's real hard to see. And a lot of things are called from behind the players. Game day stars. We've pretty much talked through this game day stars. There are 5 stars: effort, offense, defense, sportsmanship, and Christ-likeness. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this again because we've covered it. But you'll want to make sure that you have fun doing the game day stars. It's your opportunity to publicly praise your players in front of their peers and let them know what they did well in the game. I think it's a really cool thing that we do. I think it's one of the greatest things about Upward. Way to maximize the effectiveness is to just jot down what you're going to say because you may forget. If you're like me, things that happened in the first quarter are a long way from things that happened in the fourth quarter. Reminding people, like I said, what the star symbolizes. It's important for the ones, especially the ones that are new to the program, to know what those stars mean. And then smile whether or not your group won or lost. Remember, it's all your team. And express the importance of the white and the gold stars. Don't treat Christ-likeness and sportsmanship like consolation prizes. If everything that we do is to encourage kids to be Christ-like in the way they play the game, then that's the ultimate star to win. And so don't forget how important that one really is. A couple of do's and don'ts: don't present more than 2 of each color star each week or you will run out. Every child does get a star. Track which stars they receive. And by the end of the season, make sure every player has gotten 1 of each star. And no matter how well your kids play, don't give extra stars. We're going to wrap up with my 4 favorite slides and we will be done. This slide has been in Upward training since my first year as an Upward director, and I keep it in because I think it's such an important reminder. We need, as coaches, to emphasize the value and importance of every child on our team, not because of how well they play basketball, but because they're a unique and special creation of God. That is so important. These kids are not all going to grow up to be basketball players, but they are all going to grow up, hopefully, to be everything God designed them to be. And we as coaches get to pour into that, teaching them some things about life that help make them a better individual, make them a better athlete, yes, but make them more like God and really teach them about what's important. And so, some of the greatest kids I've ever coached are some of the not greatest basketball players I've ever coached. The next slide is for most participants and their parents. The difference between a good and a bad sports league experience is the coach. You make the difference. Players remember their coaches. I say this every year as a reminder to our coaches that when players at the professional level are interviewed, they don't talk about a play, a drill, a skill that they learned that made a difference and made them who they are today. They talk about the coaches that poured into them and invested in them and made them the person they are today. You make the difference. Kids come back or leave a sports program very often because of coaches. And so you're what they're going to remember. You're the focal point. So really, since you make the difference, ask yourself an important question. How do I want to be remembered? And then coach accordingly. Be the best coach you can be. Treat them the best you can. Be fair. Be a disciplined coach, but create memories with them where they look back and go, when I hear about Jesus, I think about my upward coach. Be a member of the team, not just a person in charge. My favorite upward, I get choked up on this every year when I show up, my favorite upward coaching picture ever. This team, one of the players on the team lost a sibling in an accident during the season, a 14-year-old sibling. This team dealt with a whole lot more than just basketball. They dealt with life's issues, and basketball was the distraction for them. And we've been through a tough year. These kids have been through a tough year. You're going to have kids on your teams that have lost relatives to COVID, among other things. And along with that, all the other pressures and things that life presents. It's been a tough year. And so be the kind of coach that kids look at as refreshing and as a chance, as someone who leads them away from some of the, harsher, more downside pieces of life, to really enjoying sport as a way to get back into the flow of having some fun in life and socially. And then lastly, I end every year's training with this slide, and it's because I believe it so much. And it's funny because at our church, if you attend Emmanuel, you're aware of this. If you don't, this will be new to you, but we were challenged a few weeks back to read through the New Testament in a year. And if you read one chapter every weekday for an entire year, you'll make it all the way through the New Testament. I had no idea how that math came out, but it's a great thing. And so Lori and I have taken on that challenge, and it is truly amazing as we're getting ready to finish the book of Matthew through our first month of reading, how often Jesus talks about loving others and how important that is in everything we do. And in fact, at one point, he talks about judgment for people's actions, and it was all about whether or not they loved people. I've learned over the last few months how important this last slide is, even more so than I had ever seen before. Loving people trumps everything. And Kaz McCaslin said that to us. He's the guy that founded Upward Sports. He said that to us in a couple of different meetings that I was in with him. And it has become more true over the years. We can run the greatest basketball league in the world. We can teach the drills. We can have the most fun. But if we don't love the kids, we're just like any other great basketball league. The thing that sets us apart is that we pour Jesus' love into everything we do, and we pour that love into how we treat the kids, their families, and in the environment we create. And I can't say enough about the coaches that we've had over the years. You coaches, even though I can't be sitting in the room with you and say this to you personally, our families rave about you. Our families have waited 4 months to play Upward basketball, and it is not because it's Upward basketball, it's because you are the Upward coaches. And so I just want to encourage you. It's been a long wait, but they're waiting to see you, and they're waiting to experience the environment that you create. And so remember, loving people does trump everything. Even if your team doesn't learn as much as you'd like, even if we have some bumps in the road, love those kids. Really show them who Jesus is and how you treat them, and we will have an amazingly great season. Do we have any questions before we close in prayer?
No, you're opening up 2 questions.
Okay. Before we do close in prayer, I'll now open it up. If there are any questions, please type them in. If we don't get anything in the next little bit, we will go ahead and close out in prayer, and we will be done 15 minutes early. Brian, you saw it. You can be my witness in staff meeting.
We'll just say questions.
All right, doesn't look like anything's coming in, so we're gonna go ahead and close it.
Questions.
Oh, wait, we do have something coming in. Good, okay.
How do we deal with families that bring more people to watch the games?
Unfortunately, the leaders at the doors will have to remind them that only one parent can enter the building with each child. It's a great question. That's one of the reasons why when you call your players, you want to make sure that you tell them that it is one parent per child, and everybody else should sit in front of the PC or the TV and live stream it. Unfortunately, we have to adhere to the capacity limits that are set for us and that we've published. If we start bending the rules there, it sets us up for getting in trouble. So, any more?
Just give it a minute.
Okay.
I'll see it when you're following.
Oh, yeah, and just so you know, if you want to see what the sports guidelines are, the Illinois Department of Public Health, IDPH, you can go out there and look and read the documents and see what the requirements are. And additionally, if you see something going haywire, please tell us. We're all in uncharted territory. So if you see something that either we've said we're supposed to do and we're missing it and it's not getting done, or you see a violation or something that we should be aware of, please let us know. We are all, we're all one big team. And okay.
So another question has come in. If a parent has to stay in the car with other children due to childcare, how do we dismiss the kids?
In that case, we've recommended that a parent ask another parent on the team to walk their child out. The parent, if the parent really cannot, and they're bringing the parent can't drop the child off. Parents have to stay with whoever comes with the child, has to stay with the child. If that really becomes an exception and an issue, then they need to talk to a leader and make individual arrangements. But what we're asking them to do is one of two things: either ask a parent on the team with their child to walk their child out, to be their on-site guardian, so representing two kids that day, or to stay with the kid, or bring someone along who can stay with the kids. I don't want to send a child out on their own. And so if you have a parent on the team that has that question and has a real issue with it, have them talk to us, and we'll try to help them come up with a solution.
And a reminder Casey put out to everybody, if any parent is disruptive about any of the COVID policies, to please find a leader immediately.
Yeah, that is important. If you have any issues with people not wanting to follow the policies or questioning it or pushing back, or a player, I'll be in the gym all day, so I'm there to help. But find a leader immediately. You're not the COVID cops. You're just helping us remind people. If it gets to a point of enforcement or any kind of an issue there, that's where a leader needs to step in. And so please, don't take that on yourself.
I don't see any other questions.
All right, let's go ahead and close out in prayer. We'll get you on your way. Lord, thank you so much for these coaches. Lord, year in and year out, I'm privileged to hear in the community what a great program Upward is. And Lord, it comes from our coaches. It's the people that make the difference. It's the way they treat the kids. It's the way they coach the games. It's the love that they pour into them. And Lord, I thank you that we've had this time to go through things. Lord, there's so much material in here and so much to keep track of with it being such a unique season. And I pray that you'll just help us to navigate, help us to accept when we make mistakes and when we forget things, and really help us to roll to roll with things as they come. But most importantly, help us to lean into you and trust you that when we're weak, you're strong. And we pray, God, that you'll put your blessing on this season, keep everyone healthy, keep the players, the families, the coaches, the leaders, all healthy. Put your healing hand on our land. In your name, amen. Thank you, coaches, for attending. We appreciate it. If you missed anything, or if that video, you want to see it, and kind of walk through it in better resolution, you'll be able to download it. We'll get it posted out there. I don't know what it'll be today, but we'll get it out there and then we'll let you know. And with that, you all are dismissed. Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.